Welcome to the Show Me the Money podcast, Unlocking Property Finance. Join us on an exciting journey into the world of property finance, where we uncover secrets, strategies, and opportunities that can turn your property dreams into a lucrative reality. Welcome to Show Me the Money, Unlocking Property Finance.
Hello. Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Show Me the Money Live. It's been a little while since our last recording, but we are delighted today to be joined by Anastasia Ttofis, who will get to introduce herself in a moment, but myself, your co-host Rose Sharma, and I'm a property investor and developer based in London. South London is my area of focus, and our other co-host is Marc.
Hello everybody, Marc Champ, Wolf Financial Managing Director. We are property finance brokers. I also do a little bit of property investment on the side, amongst other things. Host of PPM Brentwood as well, relaunching there with a new venue in February. So exciting times there. And I am so grateful and honoured to have Anastasia here with us today. So welcome Anastasia, and can you just give us a little background to who you are, what you do, and why you make the world special?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me both. So I'm Anastasia, CEO and co-founder of ILA. So ILA is the UK's only law firm specialising exclusively in property and finance, ILA. So we entered the market in March 2022 and completely revolutionised and shook up how independent legal advice is delivered in the property and finance market. We could get into kind of what that is and how we deliver that service as this podcast goes on, so I won't delve too much into that now. But why I make the world a bit special is through doing that. It's obviously offered a great solution for property developers for a system that was broken and needed revolutionising. And also I try and shine my light in terms of the well-being of entrepreneurs and how we kind of optimize ourselves. You know, how are we looking after ourselves, and how does that actually turn into us actually being really successful? And then redefining success. What does that mean, and what does it mean to you? And I try and bring that to the world as well, alongside having my own law firm as well.
Well, that is a refreshing way of looking at things, because I deal with a lot of solicitors day in, day out, and it's usually a transactional relationship you have with people. It's usually, this deal needs doing, it has legals at the end of the process, you may get a few emails from the solicitor chasing you for things, etc., but you don't actually get the looking after the client side of things as well. And ILA is the bit that is the most I suppose difficult to do for our customers, because it's always last minute, and they always are thinking, oh, I've got to get the ILA doing, and it's a rush. So to have somebody who's focused on doing that part of it is great. And I will go on to talk about MIPIM later in the episode, but last year I was talking to a lot of people, a lot of solicitors, and that's the bit that they were struggling with. So it's great that ILA have come to the market. And you've been around a little while now, haven't you?
Yeah, so we launched in March 2022, so it'll be 3 years in March. And you're quite right. So what happened was we'd identified, I'm a solicitor, and I'd specialised in banking and finance misconduct and fraud, conspiracy, so like really juicy claims. But that meant kind of reviewing financial documents was very easy for me and my team to do. And what we noticed is people were coming to us and being like, I can't get ILA anywhere. And I'm like, why is that so hard? So when something's so easy when you do it, when you're good at it. So yeah. I can understand why there was such a struggle to get ILA. And people would call me and be like, we can't get it anywhere. And I'm like, why not? Like, it's really easy. It's just some financial documents, which, by the way, I say that as in it's not as simple as that. But for somebody who was so specialised in banking claims, I couldn't see the difficulty. And so I started kind of delving into that a bit more. And we'd also had a brokerage that I was involved with as well. So I was kind of tapping into that and being like, what's going on here? And really identified this gap in the market. And when I started digging, I was like, okay, well, there's no law firm that just does ILA. So that's point one. And point two being all the law firms that were doing it as a full service law firm had either stopped doing it because of kind of professional indemnity insurance going through the roof. It was seen as very high risk and low reward. Essentially, kind of on the legality side of it, you become liable for the whole sum of the deal. But actually, if you're only charging 200 quid for it, doesn't sound like a good idea when you've got a bridging facility for 2.6 million, right? So people were like, I don't want to go near this. You would have people, like Bob in Will's Trust and Probate, who was like, yeah, do you know what? I'll pick up the ILA on that bridge. Had no idea what he was doing and would muck it up. So would cause the firm to have breaches. So law firms were like, do you know what? We're just not going to do this anymore. And so a lot of law firms were withdrawing from it. So I identified that gap in the market. And I think, many people would have heard me say this. I was laughed at. People were like, that's a stupid idea. It will never work. You can't run a law firm that just does ILA. It won't be profitable. Again, I share openly within our second year, we'd scaled to 7 figures. So it was very profitable to do it on mass volume. But you had to have the systems, processes and operations in place in order to do it on such a mass level. Otherwise, no, it wouldn't have been profitable. If you're just doing the odd ILA here and there for 200 quid, no, it's not. And if you are charging £250, which is one of our lower figures that we charge, we have a different pricing system along different ways. If it takes you 3 hours to open a file, no, it's not profitable. But if you're doing it with tech, AI integrations en masse and turning that over very quickly in terms of the technology to support it and then delivering correct, good advice, then it works. And so that's kind of where we'd identified the market. And also at that time, it just happened to be that COVID had hit. And actually that meant ILAs became online. That was our biggest win for us. If it was in person, I'd be able to do ILA and endorse it, which is where we are. Yeah. Which again, not very profitable, on just not a viable business. But again, this perfect storm happened where it came online, technology integration, and I was like, no, I can see this will work if it's done correctly. People laughed, said it wouldn't work, and here we are. Yes. So that's
brilliant.
There are a couple of lenders that are still resisting ILA online. We had it the other day with, was it MT Finance, I think, said that, wouldn't do the ILA online. And it's so backward in thinking. Why not? It doesn't matter if you're in person or not. And the bit of your business I'm really interested in is the scaling side. That really interests me, and the automation of things and bringing AI in. We at Wharf I think our automation is quite good. But what things have you done to automate your business and make sure that process is slick, efficient, and cash generative at the end of the day?
Yeah, really good question. Just to touch quickly on the MT Finance part, just for anybody listening to it. So MT Finance, from my memory, their bridging team allow ILA online, but their regulated team don't, from my memory. Okay, so we have a big document that lists every single lender in the market. And if if anyone's interested in why sometimes they do or don't, we can get onto that. But to get then ahead to I just wanted to kind of clarify that for MT Finance's sake on how they differentiate it. But the automation and how we've done that, so what I essentially did is, whenever I am thinking of something in my business, one of my first protocols, and I do mentoring, and I actually mentor brokers and have helped them revolutionize their processes, but I'm not a broker, right? So when I'm mentoring somebody will say, well, this is just how it's done. Why? Why is that? Why is it done that way? And that's one of my first ports of calls when I'm trying to automate something to make it faster. Because often it's just we get trapped in this is just how it's done. So with responding to messages, well, I need to respond to that message. Why? Well, because they need to talk to me. Okay, but can we put an automation step in there to have a touch point to the client? Because most people, consumers, just want you to acknowledge them. That's mostly what people want. So if you have a touch point that's like an automation that's like, hey, we acknowledge you and this is what we're going to do next, that often creates a bit of breathing space. But those are some of the steps that I go through when I'm first thinking about automation. But then what we did at ILA is things like a booking system. Now, again, what would you want? So again, has it always been done that way, and what would I want? I hate going on a website and not being able to just book something now. It gets on my nerves. So like for a broker, when you're like, give us a call today. No, let me book an appointment in your diary now. And you can sync your platform so that it's doing that. Like, you've got to think like the touch points for client. If there's too many things or too many obstacles, I'm out. I don't want to do it. So what we did is make it so that you come on our website and you can book instantly online. You haven't even got to call us. And it will feed live availability. So again, if I've got to call a solicitor, I can't be bothered to call a solicitor.
No. And that, do you know what? That is the worst thing in the world. Either calling a doctor's surgery or a solicitor's. Then nobody ever calls back.
Exactly. And then I've got to call and I've got to explain what I want. I can't be bothered, right? So, but same with the brokers. Like if I've got to, I know hundreds of brokers, but if I have to call, and so me calling them is quite an easy thing to do, but I'm really busy. So what I'd love actually, if Marc, if I can just book a time in your diary and then I can allocate that time for you then, because I've booked it in. So cool, that's good. But if I've got to call you to book a time, I can't be bothered. Okay. Yeah. So I always try to see what would people want and what has always been done. So these are kind of questions that I'd ask myself. So that was a barrier to entry, I think, people getting hold of the advice quick enough. So we have our online booking forms. But even when we're tweaking our booking form, if the team are like, can we have this bit of information in there? I'm like, no. As in, if there's too many steps for the person, you will lose their interest and they'll go somewhere else.
This is quite refreshing because I guess typically a solicitor, I don't want to stereotype, but they tend to be quite set in their ways in terms of the old school ways of processing, not just documents, but bookings, phone calls, quite old school, right? So it's quite nice to hear that you're quite into, even things like user interface, user experience, automation. Tell us a little bit about how you've kind of got into that, because that is quite different to a typical solicitor. I'm sure many people can identify with that observation, but I'm really intrigued by that because it's great. It's what that sector definitely needs.
Yeah, thank you. So I think what also I found quite interesting, I think you can be a good entrepreneur by obviously like studying things and like learning like, okay, what you just called it all there, I don't even know it's called that. I don't even know it's called it. It's just what I do. So I think there's like two camps of entrepreneurs. There's like people who have maybe learned all this stuff, and fair play, you've listened to podcasts, you've read books, and you're like, this is what I need to do. With ILA, there was things I got to in year 2 that people were like, oh yeah, like you do that thing. I was like, what does that mean? They're like, yeah, you use it. Whatever you just said there, user face. I don't even know what that means. I just did it, right? So there was things that I just did. And I don't know why. Maybe it's how my brain works. And like, we've got a database. And I think, Marc, I've told you about it before, but it's about 10,000 people in property and finance. The total database is 16,000, and that's including some consumers for other work we do. And I just, from the outset, was like, we need to track sales conversions. So every single touch point with a client or interaction with somebody, we record, and we record conversion rates. We pull in all data fields get pulled in. And now I realise, actually, if I sold the business, I'd probably in a few years' time, the business would be worth millions because I've done that. But I didn't know. I just did it. It just made sense to me. So there's things that just made sense to me. So to ask me where I learned that, I don't know. It was just obvious. But
that was intrinsic. No, that's great. That's really nice.
It is completely obvious. But I've been in this industry for 21 years now, and I wish I'd kept every single contact I'd ever made in a spreadsheet. But a couple of things on that. One, I do keep a lot of them. Two, and there's an issue with that for me. And two, when it used to be the day where I used to give out business cards, I've thrown them all away now because they were just a pain. But going back to me creating that database, I have created a database, but it's not GDPR compliant in my opinion. And I don't want to get into the legalities of GDPR because it is very boring, but I haven't had anybody subscribe into my stuff and my marketing, if you will. So I've sort of almost wiped the slate clean this year and said, I'm going to go out and I'm going to create this database and build this and ask people who were in that original database whether they want to be. So I'm giving people the option now. So I don't know, have you ever done a cleansing exercise like that?
Yeah, so our clients, obviously, we've got all opt-in terms and all our terms of
Yeah.
business, and obviously they had your services, so that pulls that
Yes.
in. And so I think, again, like my database is slightly it's unusual because we've done, like, from memory, like 9,000 ILAs, or I think now I posted at Christmas time we've done like 8,000. So a huge proportion of our data is our clients. And so that's that. And
Yeah.
then obviously we have, for many things, like on our mailers, obviously you have, like you said, the ability to opt in, opt out. And then obviously we look at as well the link on the GDPR for kind of I forgot the kind of exact wording of it, where they would have an interest in this service because it's
Yes.
linked to. So for example, when I email your client, Mark, and you're copied in, are you likely to be, I can't remember the exact wording, I've got it written, I was looking at it yesterday, in fact, I've got it written down, but the link to that client is in, like, it's something that you would also be of interest to. So we've kind of pulled some of it in through that, but sought external advice. So again, I often will seek external advice. I just had it from a contact in the industry who specialises in business development for lawyers. So we went through all this on the GDPR stuff to have a look what we could and couldn't do.
Yeah.
I think that's really important as well. So again, if you're whenever I didn't know certain things, I'm not saying you don't know that at all, Mark, but for me, I just wasn't like, I want to be sure on it. So sought external help, particularly as a law firm.
Yes.
So at the
Yeah,
moment, we haven't got to do a
totally.
cleanse, by the way. So at the moment, we're good. But
Yeah.
I also filter the data. So the data, when we add data to our system, it's filtered already by client, lead, and the leads are filtered down further by why did we lose that lead, so I can
Yeah.
track why I've lost
That's
it.
really important. Do you ever send out an evaluation form about asking the customer why they didn't go with you? You ever done that?
When we email them to chase them up, we'll often
Yeah.
they'll often say, oh, I no longer need it, or people love to tell you I found it somewhere else and you're a rip off
Yeah,
or something.
especially if it's
People
cheaper.
like to, people like to tell you that, right? So we know people, people like just give us a bit of abuse on the way out. That happens sometimes, doesn't it? We
Yeah.
don't want to go with you because it's too expensive, which, by the way, I disagree with. But so we'll know and we'll track that. I'll track if they say, oh, don't worry, my solicitor has decided they can do it internally or something. So we often track that. But again, this was all things that I just did. I don't even think I knew about, to be honest, I don't think I knew about what I could and couldn't do on GDPR. And then I just did it. I'd done it in a certain way. And then when we got to these stages, was like, oh, I'm already doing it right. Good. And there's an element of, sometimes I wonder if there's an element of luck, like, in that, because it's like, well, you just stumbled on those things. But is it luck when it's right?
I don't think it is
How
luck.
your mind works.
I think it's best practice. It's doing what you think is right and doing it in the right way.
Yeah.
Usually, it's the right way. It's what your gut tells you. And we built our business on being nice to people and looking after them. We can only find the same deals as any other broker out there, but I believe we're successful because we're really nice to our customers and look after them and try and help them as much as possible. And a lot of people don't do that. They just see it as volume transactions, one after the other, and that's not how I run my business, and I know that's not how you run your business. So it's great seeing what you're doing, and there must have been challenges along the way, though. What have you had to come up against? What's been tough for you?
Yeah, there's never, someone said to me the other day, the quote, this new level, new devil, and every time you level up, there's just something you didn't see, and that's something that sometimes, I'm sure many entrepreneurs have this moment where I think, God, imagine how nice it would be just to have a 9 till 5 and come home and just get on with my life. Like, sometimes I think about that, but I know I'd also be really bored, but obviously there's no, which either camp you sit in, honour that. But I just, for me, think, God, sometimes I wish I wasn't doing this because it's actually really difficult sometimes. But yeah, there's been absolute challenges. So when we launched was probably our biggest challenges. I think I've shared, like I said, people were just laughing, saying it would never work. I, at the time, was in a lot of debt personally through, like, studying. When I was a trainee solicitor, I was on, like, £15,000. So I must have been in my early 20s, I qualified when I was 25. And I think I struggled with the concept of not being able to accept that, like, I didn't come from money. I was the first fat person in my family to go to university. My dad couldn't speak English when he went to school. So I didn't come from money. And I think working in the legal profession around people who came from money, and they all had flash cars and their parents bought them a house. And I think I struggled to accept that when I was a trainee solicitor, because you want to be like the people you're around, right? And that's not something I now value as such, but at the time I did. So I'd got myself into quite a bit of debt. So when we came to launch ILA, I was 28 and I'd only been qualified for 3 years. I'd obviously worked in law since my 20s. So I did it reverse way. I got a lot of experience beforehand. But the challenge of you're not qualified enough. You can't start your own law firm at 28. I was in debt, so how was I going to fund it? I'm now debt free, by the way. So just to caveat that again, that's the beauty of it, that I'd cleared all my debt, and that's incredible. But I was about £30,000 worth of debt, and we needed to launch a business. We had no money, so that was a challenge. And I think I've shared before, like our domain name cost us $27,500.
Wow.
And we had no business. We didn't even have a limited company at the time. But I was like, again, you say to me, how did you know this? I don't know. I just decided that we needed a domain name that said www.ila.co.uk. That's our domain name. And again, people are like, that's mad. That's ludicrous. Like, you didn't even have a limited company. What were you doing? How did you know? I don't know. You just I don't know. I can't tell you how I knew that.
Just works it out. That's brilliant.
I don't know. And now I had a meeting with an SEO expert. The first time we've had an SEO expert on our website. We've relaunched our website again. And he was like, your SEO is shit. He's like, the only thing that means you're top all the time is your domain name.
That's good.
I didn't know that.
Maybe I should change Wolf to...
Yeah.
So you made a big saving in SEO over the years then.
Exactly. So but I did know when I bought the domain name that people would search, I need ILA. That's what people were searching. So it was just common sense to me that I hadn't read that anywhere, but it was obvious to me, at least, that people were going to search, I need ILA. I've been told I need ILA on a PG. So what's going to come up? ILA.
No, do you know, I was too egotistical for that, because I in my head, I could never call my business Property Finance Brokerage Limited or something. Mm-hmm. But it needed to sound a little bit different or whatever, a good name for me. But that's what I should have done. I should have swallowed my pride.
Every law firm in this UK, obviously I've got a co-founder, Luke Baldwin.
Yeah.
Most law firms would be called Ttofis Baldwin. No one cares what your surname is. No one cares that you're a lawyer. Get over it. Like, we don't. I don't care. If you look at most law firms, they're called their surname.
And it sort of moves you away from having to build a brand almost, because you are, the Ron Seal type of provider of legal services. You do exactly what he says on the tin. So it's simply genius.
And that's the thing. It's like, I think with hindsight, I look back and it's like, I think, there has to be a little bit of genius or madness, I think, in anybody who's created something that's a little bit successful. I'm not saying I'm genius at all, because I'm actually not, always don't have to be book smart. Obviously I'm a lawyer, so I'm intelligent, but like, I didn't know all these by studying something. No. I just went with it, what worked.
But that's the difference between intelligence and knowledgeable. Intelligence is almost an intuition. Knowledgeable is when you just know facts and you read your law book and then you regurgitate the legal jargon or whatever lawyers do. But it's great, and it's good to hear that you've overcome the challenges and the launch side of it. I know when I started Wharf Up, we launched on March the 7th, 2020, and COVID hit on March the 9th, 2020. I'd given up my job at Shawbrook, which was a decent salary, had a newborn baby, I had a little boy had just started private school, and I went from a salary to zilch straight away. But I planned it. It was all in the life plan, and it hopefully, 5 years on has worked out pretty well. But it's so interesting, your story of how you've got to it and the challenges that you've overcome. I was presenting the other week actually, and one of my things in my presentation, which is unlocking property finance, one of them is about creating documentation that can be used all the way along the finance process, and getting your legal documentation done early and making sure you have all your ducks in a row is so important. I presume you have to rescue a lot of cases along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have people coming to us saying, the law firms either mucked it up, or because that's the thing as well. Like obviously there are full service law firms that do ILA, so you can go wherever you want to get that done. But obviously the risk of it not being done correctly, we have this big document that's full of all the lenders' different requirements. So like, for example, one lender might say to you, I need you to get it witnessed on the video call, which is cool. But another lender says, on that video call, I need you to actually certify or screenshot the witnessing actually signing it. So you need to have a screenshot of them signing it, and also the witness to hold up their ID, for example. There's slight differences, or other people might say you can go away and get it witnessed yourself, but actually we need the witness to have done an amicus ID check, which is our electronic ID check. Or there's just lots of little nuances that if they're not right will cause the deal to fall through. Or we get people coming to us saying someone's tried to charge us thousands for it, which again, look, people can charge whatever they think their worth is in that transaction. I'm not against people, solicitors charging well. I think the race to the bottom is what's causing big issues in the legal industry. So I'm not exactly poo-pooing them charging a lot, but when people are coming to us say, someone tried to charge me $2,000 for this one ILA, that is obscene. It's outrageous. And they're not like a complex ILA. Because what they're trying to say, it's almost like an F-off price. It's like, look, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to charge a lot of money. Otherwise, I'm hoping you go away. And sometimes they don't go away and they pay it.
Because a lot of solicitors don't like doing ILA.
No, because I said it's high risk and low reward. They're busy doing their main, when I was a litigation lawyer, you're doing your main dispute work, you're engrossed on this case. Somebody wants you to come into their firm, open up a file, send out terms of business, ID checks, do a conflict check, get an invoice out, get the invoice paid, and the ILA completed. If they also want it all by tomorrow, because it's urgent, that's annoying for most law firms. But our file opening system takes seconds. Everything's electronic. And I said our team they're only doing this. So we've got space for it. Whereas I think when you're busy doing something else, it's really inconvenient. So, that's been a huge kind of relief in the industry. As you know, Marc, last year we'd won Best Specialist Finance Partner at the BNC Awards, which we joked about. Again, when we launched the firm, we were like, can you imagine if that ever happened? Because we're just two people who came up with an idea. That's just all. Where
is your award? Have you got it there?
Oh, no, I'm at home today. So it's in the office with the team where it rightly deserves to be with them. So, yeah, it's in the office. And, I just think that was crazy. And then just like even at the event itself, obviously when we won, I'm crying. Because a lot of people obviously in the industry talk about, it's a bit of a side topic, but, talk about how rigs awards are rigs and all that stuff. We had no idea that was going to happen. I didn't even know many people who were on the panels. I didn't reach out to anybody, and that's the crazy thing. So when you actually win an award that's like you didn't know was going to happen, I was in tears, and it was insane.
Well deserved.
Yeah, it was well deserved. And as a person who was on the judging panel, I know what all the brokers who were sitting around the table were saying, and all of them were there were other candidates, but yours stuck out because it was unique. It was done in the right way, and it was filling a gap in the market, and it was different to other people. It wasn't just your typical value or typical solicitor. It was a niche that you created, and everybody just loved it. And I think, if I remember rightly, it was a unanimous vote, and it was one of the only ones. So it was good, because when we went to that dinner, I knew you'd won already. I know. But I couldn't say anything, and it was great seeing that. So, I'm sure there's going to be more awards coming. But it must be great having built something and really seen it come to fruition and working, and a living, breathing baby that's there for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. There's all that positive stuff. And I also try and share Jesus, sometimes I hate it, and sometimes you do, and that's again for any business owners listening, whether that's your property developer, broker, a law firm, it's also really normal. to share the success and like, wow, this is amazing. But don't get me wrong, I have weeks or days where I hate it because it's hard. It's really hard.
I'm very different. I'm very different to that. I can't get. I was going to say something. I'm going to rephrase what I was going to say there. I can't hit the highs, and I don't feel the lows. Mine is so stable. I don't. If I win an award, yeah, it's great. I'm not that elated. If I've done a big case, I'm not that bothered. When I say bothered, I mean, I know there's a big amount of money coming in, but it's not like ecstatic. The feeling isn't there. And when something goes wrong, I've kept it on a level. And I know you're probably more in touch with your emotions and how you feel. And I don't know if it's a male-female thing. I've got no idea. Just different people. But I just can't do it. I can't. So it must be great when you do feel that exhilaration.
Mark the machine.
Yeah,
sorry,
that's how
good.
I've trained myself. I've trained myself to be like that. And when you're looking at things, take off all the zeros from the money side of it and just forget about it. And now I can't get back into that side of things. I need to be enlightened. Right?
I can help you with that as well.
Oh, maybe. Tell us about that then.
Well, no, we're just on that point, Mark. Nothing's ever wrong or right. That
No.
again, it's just you, okay? And I think also, and also not being like a roller coaster is also is a method, so to speak, because actually then, when something goes really wrong, you can kind of stay grounded, which is also awesome. But it would just maybe be looking at a bit more joy in the present when something goes right and celebrating yourself, because that's, so to stay kind of with it and grounded when it goes wrong, but also because it goes wrong a lot. But to also celebrate yourself and feel joy in the wins would be beautiful, I think. But, as I said, it's everybody's reaction to things is different. But yeah, you said kind of tell you about that. I mean, the other kind of aspect which I mentioned right at the start is that, for years I've been on this kind of journey of discovery of more, and it's not just, and I've done everything, as in I've had more money than I could ever have dreamt of. I've had, more drink than I probably could ever have dreamt of. I've had more, anything that you could try, I've done to try and work out what makes us feel alive. And, in that journey is coming back to, our meaning of success and our meaning of happiness. Because I think in this world, we can often get distracted by the people. So I think something I'm actually due to release very soon, which I'll hop on here, is I used to own a retreats company as well, just before I launched ILA, and they used to sell out, and it was focused on professional people, so like solicitors, accountants. This now is on entrepreneurs, and it's actually being launched, and it's called Success and Soul. And what I'll be bringing in is kind of the operations and strategy work, so like a mentor that does that, but also bringing in like somatic work and nervous system work to really connect with our inner intuition and inner knowing. So like as business owners, we can be hell-bent on I'll be happy when I make 10k months and when I get that Lambo. I've done those months and some, or I bought that car, and I was like, oh shit, this doesn't make me happy. And I think we can get caught up in what other people's idea of success is without really checking back in with what we want. And it's not intentional, it just happens. And actually, I was miserable. I was really miserable. And actually, like, stripping it back down, I love going away in a camper van with my joggers on, a hoodie. I'll be in a camper van just like fishing with my partner. He loves fishing. And really basic things in life, but that doesn't have to apply to everybody at all, by the way, but I'm just saying, what does it mean to you? And that kind of inner knowing, that intuition, because again, when we look at how to scale a business, one of the first things, I can tell you all the operations, I can tell you all the systems, but it means absolutely nothing if you don't believe in yourself. It means absolutely nothing if you can't. When people were saying to me that's never going to work, I could have all the systems sat there, but if I didn't believe in myself and back myself, it would have been worth nothing. So, your mindset, I know we hear about mindset a lot, but actually somatic work is in your body. So we're in our heads all the time. Your body knows, if anyone's read the book, things like The Body Keeps the Score, your body knows like trauma responses to things. Remember you tense when something happens, your body's storing that. So we need to get back connected with ourselves and our body. Hence why, you know, for you, Mark, maybe things like, you know, like connecting back in with what joy is, what happiness is. I think so many business
put me
owners
down for the course. I'm interested.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I like it.
So it's like a therapy session for Mark.
It is. It's
Anyway,
what it turned out to
all of us
You
entrepreneurs
can connect. You can do it.
Yeah, it does. It sounds so interesting. And before we wrap up, one other interesting thing I think we should mention is MIPIM and Ladies That Can. Do you want to tell us a bit about that and what's happening this year?
Sure. So myself, Kim McGinley, and Rosalia have launched a initiative called Ladies Who Can, and the idea of that is to bring ladies together in MIPIM at Cannes. So obviously in Cannes, but you know, MIPIM is the wider real estate event for anybody who's not sure what it is. And we launched that this year with the idea of just a space for women. And you know, I always really caveat when I talk about women's space, it's not anti-men. The same way as I believe men should have space for men to be men and communicate and be together. You know, I think that's very important. And women have a space for women to feel safe and be communicated together. And obviously, Mark, such as yourself, you know, you very much support those initiatives. So I think men and women supporting these initiatives together is really, really, really necessary. So just to I always drop that piece in there, that it's never meant as a I think the sexes have to work together and support one another. So this space for women in MIPIM is just to identify that actually there's a real underrepresentation of women in MIPIM, which Mark, you will agree with as well. I'm sure, you know, it's not just us saying 100%. That as women. I think it's just very much obvious.
Will all the women be made to wear the same dress code as the men, which is chinos, blue shirt, and a blue gilet?
Yeah, I mean we could do that, couldn't we? Do a little fashion session.
Yeah.
But what we're doing is bringing the women together to create that space for women to be there. I think it's a necessary initiative for women to turn up in MIPIM because it's abroad. For us to go over together. We are holding an event at this luxury villa in the morning on the 11th, Tuesday the 11th.
Tuesday the 11th, yeah.
And it's sold out, which is insane, by the way. We only had 70 spaces only. That's quite a big number. It's sold out. People are knocking on our door like we need more space. So next year we're going to need a bigger boat to bring all these women together and celebrate women being out there and alongside our fellow men celebrating it too. That's so important for us all to come together and support one another. So that's the initiative. It's really, really taken off. It was really interesting to see how many women didn't know either what it was or didn't know how to get out there on their own, because it's quite an ask to go somewhere entirely on your own where you don't know anybody. Yeah. So I think that's really, really, really beneficial.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Ros came out there last year, and we worked in tandem, Ros and I, going to different events, and it worked really well. But it was so clear that there aren't enough females out there, and females make up a lot of our industry, and it's crazy that I know some of the people I've spoken to, they're a little bit fearful of doing it because it is so male dominated. So for you to encourage people, for the ladies to go out there is great, and hopefully it becomes more of a 50-50 event to go to. So hopefully it will work, and I'm sure it'll be a big success. So good.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, that's great.
Right, we will wrap up there if that's okay with you. Ro, have you got any final questions?
No. I guess we just want to make sure people know how to get in touch with Anastasia and team. But I guess www.ila.co.uk is the message here. And I think it's great. The nature of ILA tends to be quite last minute, certainly in my experience, because sometimes you don't get your legal documentation, the final offer from the lender until everything has been dotted and crossed. And that's why we end up sort of scraping around to get the ILA at the last minute. But it's great that you've got this really slick system that can deliver it at short notice as well, I assume. So that's great.
Yeah, within 2 hours is how soon it is. So
that is substantial.
Hours, but
it sounds great.
No, it's been great.
Yeah, we'll pick up Anastasia about maybe how we can make Wolf a bit more efficient in the future. That would be excellent. And thank you very much for coming on. Really enjoyed it. And we will see you next week. Well, not you, Anastasia, but we'll see everybody else next week for another episode. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in.
One,
Great to see you. Cheers.
That concludes another episode of Show Me the Money podcast, Unlocking Property Finance. Connect with us on social media where we share additional tips, resources, and behind-the-scenes insights. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep making those smart investment moves. This has been Show Me the Money, Unlocking Property Finance.